Well, the gloves are off as the Dems fight for delegates in the Empire State. But will the increasing vitriolic tone of both campaigns actually weaken the eventual nominee in November? Joining me now, Christopher Hahn and Betsy Woodruff. Betsy, you know, a lot of Democratic insiders are saying this recent ratcheting up, if you will, of the rhetoric, particularly from the Bernie Sanders side, could have a negative lingering effect going into the general election.
Certainly, without a doubt, and we're seeing that play out over the course of this particular contest in New York. Sanders just had a massive rally in Prospect Park in Brooklyn, and their estimates there are about 28,000 people there. That's so big, it's huge. The reality is that Sanders has been digging Clinton. He's realized that the only way to really take her down or be competitive whatsoever is to actually go after her, is to bring out that sarcasm that he really has honed, and that, of course, does lasting damage.
You know, Chris, you don't agree with that, right?
No, I mean, look, primaries happen, then there's a healing period, and then there's an election. And if the Democrats are running against Donald Trump or Ted Cruz, quite frankly, they're going to be very motivated to beat that person. Bernie Sanders is not going to do well here in New York tonight. New York is a closed primary. He hasn't beat her head-to-head with Democrats. He's going to be about 15 points behind her. He's not going to do much better than Zephyr Teachout did against Andrew Cuomo a couple of years ago. I put his ceiling at about 38, between 38 and 41%, and I think that's where he's going to finish.
So does that officially sink him then with respect to getting a nominee? I know that was a long shot to begin with, but he had the momentum, 8 out of 9 states. This officially probably sinks the case.
Well, he's won 8 out of 9 caucuses mostly. There's
but the
one
bottom line
primary
is he won them, right?
Yeah, he won them. I mean, 35,000 people. More people were at his rally here in New York City than were voting in those elections.
Those count. Those states count. We don't want to be New York snobs and just
well, you know, I want to be a New York snob because
Wyoming has fewer people than live in this that work in this building.
Well, you know, he likes. But here's the thing, Charles. He likes to say, well, Hillary's won in the deep South, which I think is code for something that I don't really like. So when he talks about winning 9 out of the 7 out of the last 9,
what's the code for? Is it the same thing when she says I carry hot sauce?
No, I personally think it's code for people who don't count in the Democratic Party primaries, which I don't really understand where he's going with that. So I have a real problem with the way he describes her victories. And, you know, I don't think Massachusetts is in the Deep South. Illinois is not in the Deep South. She won those states. You know, so I don't get where he comes from with that.
You know, Betsy, though, I think there's got to be a way for the Hillary campaign to either find a way to get Bernie involved eventually with that so-called healing process, because she is lacking enthusiasm, and I don't know that there's a cure for it. Maybe she could bring him along on a campaign trail into the general.
Look, and Chris is right. Of course, Hillary right now is far and away most likely to be the Democratic nominee. That said, what matters and why this primary is still so important and interesting is that Bernie is damaging her. He's slowing her down. She's having to spend money in New York. This is time she could be spending focusing on building out her Pennsylvania organization, developing more in swing states that actually matter in general elections. Instead, she's having to campaign in a state that's basically a lock for her in the general. I mean, look, I've covered a number of Bernie Sanders events just from the trail. I talked to his supporters. Some of them say, yeah, we'll get on board with Hillary. Others say, no way, no how. Of course, that's not a scientific data sample, but the reality is he's not helping her out. He might help her in the general, but not right now at all.
I've worked on many a primary, Charles. This is said in every primary. This is damaging the party. It was said about Obama in 2008. It never is. It's actually always good for the eventual winner. You get tried by fire. All the warts get shown, and you're ready for the general election.
I think most of the old school folks say you need some sort of fight, you know, to sort of get you ready for the race.
It builds you up.
Well, either that or builds you down.
Let's hope
Thanks
not.
a lot, Chris. I appreciate it. By the